Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. If you're seeing my face, then you know it's time for another session of our live Heat Press for Profit podcast. I'm very excited for this, as everybody should be, because today's topic or questions have come directly from our Heat Press for Profit Facebook group. Had to figure out what all the words were. So these are questions that customers, friends, members of that group have actually asked. And we've got two very, very special expert elite guests that are going to be helping answer those questions. Now, some of them have been answered by our peers in the group, but I think it's always great to get two different perspectives, especially from two people that have been in the industry for quite some time and also know many, many different nuances of the printing industry. So before I introduce them, let me give the quick rundown for our podcast entry. What am I? It's a Friday and it was a short week. So yay. Okay, so here we go. Welcome to the Heat Press for Profit podcast, your go-to resource for everything related to your apparel decoration business success. Thank you for joining the team at STAHLS and listening to topics that come straight from the heart of the apparel decoration community. We'll discuss lucrative business strategies, insider tips, technology advancements, and cutting-edge trends. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting your business, this podcast was designed to provide invaluable insights, how-to perspectives, and inspiring stories from our industry experts and apparel decorators just like you. Our guests today are two people, Jennifer Johnson and Danny Marcario. And Danny gets talked a lot about by our customers and how helpful he is. And I know Jennifer Johnson has had numerous positions as well within STAHLS and Transfer Express. And I guarantee you I'm going to say it, she can answer everything. Oh, I'm going to hold you to it. So you guys, thank you so much for taking your time on Friday to join us. Jen, go first. Give the people just a little bit about all of the knowledge in your brain on the apparel industry.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I am super honored and privileged and all the good things to be here. I love your podcast. I feel very special that I get to be a part of it. So yeah, I've been in the industry about 20 or so years, kind of embarrassing to admit that. And I really like to consider myself a heat press evangelist. I love heat transfer technology. I can't shut up about it. I will scream it from the rooftops. If you are new to the decorating industry, this is where you need to be. It is especially the exciting things that have happened in our industry over the last, 2 to 5 years. It's just revolutionized what you can do with apparel and accessories. And I'm just so excited to be a part of it. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions, some burning questions.
Danny, you're up.
Yeah, my name is Danny Marcario. Thanks again for having me on, Kelly. It's great to be here. And I've been in and out of this industry in many different ways since 1999. So it's been about 25 years, most of it in the team sporting goods side of things, but certainly on the production side. I was in sublimation production for a little while, sales, all different types of decoration methods. I've been exposed to it one way or another. So a lot of time on many different sides and collaborating with a lot of great people. So yeah, it's been quite a wild ride, especially with heat printing. It's changed a ton over the last couple decades.
So with that, you guys got just a little bit of background. And if you've been, attending shows or you've had the pleasure to be able to interact with either one of these experts, then you know that they're going to be as honest, as helpful. And at the end of the day, we just want to see you succeed. It's not about, hey, this is where you need to go because this is the company that we work for. This is truly about making sure that we give you the best information to truly help guide you. So as we go through some of these questions that are from the Heat Press for Profit Facebook group, please also feel free to pop them in the comments, and we will do our best to get to those if we have time. If not, you know what? That's always a great time for me to beg these two to come back on and we can do another session. But I'm pretty sure we will have some time. So now's the time to get 2 or 3 if you want my opinion as well. So let's start off, which there is no particular order on, kind of how these questions are going to go. But one I think is really big is when your customers come up and they say, I want screen print. Do they really know the difference between screen print or heat transfer or DTG or even sublimation? They just know screen print as kind of like what a Kleenex is. Kleenex is a brand. It is a tissue that people are needing. So in this particular case, if somebody sends you art that is multicolor, you're not going to screen print it, and you have a solution for something else. How do you explain to customers that what they think is screen print isn't actually screen print? Does it matter? Is there a way to kind of keep the negative notion that heat transfers are bad because, of what they were in the 90s? What is your opinion on that, you guys?
You want me to go first, Danny? You want to go first?
Go ahead, Jen.
All right. So I think first and foremost, that's a great question that we get asked so much. How I answer this question would probably be very different even 5 years ago than it is today. I think with so many new people and younger generations entering the apparel industry and the decorating industry and the customization industry, and even at the retail level, long gone are those days of that negative connotation associated with the Farrah Fawcett, Jersey Shore, bulletproof transfers that crack and peel and just are gross, right? And heavy. The technology has come so far that really people, sometimes I even get, and I consider myself an expert. I will go into stores with my daughter and I'm sitting there looking at the decoration like, oh, is this, screen print or transfer, and it's really hard to tell the difference. I also am a firm believer in less is more. So with a lot of your end users and your customers and your clients in your shop, or if you're just a side hustle starting this business, less is more, right? We are so mired in analysis paralysis and so many options, and it like floods us. And they don't really need to know unless they specifically ask. I am not about sharing. I am going to represent their logo and their artwork in the best possible way I know how as a business owner, at the right price, in the time frame that they need, and in their budget. And if that means heat transfer, so be it. With the caveat, you must have the confidence that the heat transfer is going to be durable and long lasting and of quality, right? Because there's nothing worse than giving a customer an order and the transfers start falling off, right? So what does that equate to? A quality heat press, making sure that you're following the recipe. All of those factors go into it. But as long as you've got all those boxes checked, I see no issues with utilizing heat transfer and really not saying anything to the customer.
Danny, do you have a different opinion?
That was a great response. The only things I would add is there is a level of leverage that you have here. If you understand the industry and what's going on in screen print or the other decoration methods, you know that they don't have as many outs to get that particular item decorated. And if you know those things, then you can use that as leverage in the decoration that you're offering, right? And that usually has thresholds to it. So like an example with screen print, maybe it's the amount of colors and the quantity that a screen printer would even take on to accomplish that particular print job. And if you have that knowledge ahead of time and they want 20, 30, 50 pieces, then for a fact they're not going to get it done any other way or with another decorator, and your solution is going to be the better one because you have that knowledge behind you. So that's certainly valuable.
I love it. So when we go through some of these questions, I'm going to do my best to try to group them in categories. So we're not going from business, markets, product all over the place, but there might be some skipping around. So one thing that I kind of wanted to dive into was I've seen a lot of questions more recently on our podcasts, webinars, and in the group in regards to cutters. And I have to say that that makes me so excited because I am a lover of special, unique HTV. I think it's a huge bonus that people can offer if they're already using a heat press. Yes, there might be some cutting and weeding involved, but the type of special effect, like this is chroma twill. This is our silver chroma twill, and you just cannot get this effect with anything else. This is an HTV. It is cut. It has texture to it, and you can tell that it has a little bit of a metallic and in person kind of a pearlescent look as well. So for cutters, this is going to be a two-part question. What do you recommend somebody kind of evaluate when they have a craft cutter needing to go to a larger cutter or an industrial cutter? And then also for somebody that isn't cutting, but they want to get into it, what's your recommendation? Do they start with a craft cutter or do they start with, something that's got a little more grit to it?
Yeah, these are great questions. So what I look at is if you're going to get into cutting, you're likely going to start with something small, maybe a craft cutter or something that you put on the desktop. And when you determine, or when you're finding out, okay, I need to upgrade my cutter, it's usually you're hitting a capacity. You're not able to get your jobs done fast enough. Maybe the materials you're cutting are too difficult to cut. All of those things hit a capacity and you go, I want to be faster and I want to do all these things better and make my product look better. And so the things that you would ask yourself is, one is the capacity. Two is, do I have the space for a bigger cutter in my shop? Can I fit it? What are the benefits of this cutter? If I make this investment, how much put through and, how much more money am I going to make with this? Is it going to help me overall? Am I going to be more accurate and more consistent? And I think so. I think if you get a good quality production cutter, you're going to upgrade all of those things. And like Kelly mentioned, there's a lot of specialty materials that are involved here that some are thicker than others. And production cutter is going to allow you to cut those things, cut materials that you probably couldn't cut with a craft cutter. And it's going to give you those advantages. And that's kind of the things I would look at or give advice on as to why would I invest $1,800 or $2,000 into a cutter if I'm not going to get these benefits out of it? And I think more often than not, you will. And I think there's a ton of profits that come from it. And even taking this down to a little bit more of a granular level of what you can do, names and numbers are extremely profitable. And for you to be able to produce them on demand, same day, next day, and really, really get a good price for them. I think if you mix all of these things I mentioned together and add names and numbers to it, you'd be in a good spot. And it'd be a great investment.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Danny says, I equate a craft cutter to a hobbyist. Somebody that's making birthday t-shirts, t-shirts for friends, cute little things for their kids or their grandkids, somebody that's doing it as a hobby. They're doing it because they love it. They love to create and do things like that, right? As you start to take your business to that next step and you're getting these bigger jobs, right? But yet you still want that element of differentiation, right? I feel like DTF is heavily saturated in our market, but DTF, just like you said, doesn't offer the bling and the special effects and the reflective and the puff and the dimensional products, right? Really, you can only get that from vinyl today. So stepping up from what we call a step motor, right? A step and repeat motor on like a craft cutter, a Cricut or something like that, into a servo motor, which is an industrial cutter, the speed, the accuracy, the thicker items you can cut, right? You all of a sudden just open up so much more capacity and capability in your business. And that really kind of takes you from that hobbyist or side hustle or just doing things for fun to really that next step in your business. And I think it's hugely beneficial.
I also want to add to that, because I think one of the biggest things is if your business is based on quantity. You don't take onesies, twosies, maybe you even like loathe taking 6 pieces. Then you're going to spend more time setting up and running your cutter for a quantity order than you would just putting in a little bit of money and getting the efficiency and the speed out of an industrial cutter or a servo motor. And if it's one of those things where, you know what, maybe you have an Etsy business, and there is nothing to be said that you can't have a successful Etsy business creating onesies, twosies, custom. There is nothing not taking that. The biggest thing is if you're doing one and you can keep that cricket or that silhouette working on that one individual piece, then great. Because if I just need one, sometimes it is easier to use a craft cutter than setting up, getting out my roll, doing all of that for, I have a GraphTech and a silhouette. But I'll tell you what, 9 times out of 10, even if I'm only doing 1 to 3 pieces for samples or content, I want to use my GraphTech because I know I can sneeze and my design is finished being cut, especially using thicker materials like this chroma twill. And if I want to put a little bit of detail, I have more confidence that the GraphTech is going to achieve that versus fighting with the silhouette and not knowing why something didn't get cut and then troubleshooting it for 20 minutes.
Right.
Then at that point, I've already lost half an hour. So
and
that's
your profit, all your profitability, right? Like
money is time and time is money. And if this is a business that you want to stay in, then take that initial leap and get the industrial cutter, because the more you do it, the more efficient you can be, the quicker you're going to make your money back. Now, we did have a question from Terry that said, what type of cutter do you suggest?
Ooh, Danny, I'm curious which one you're going to go with.
So really, I mean, the two that STAHLS has as an example are Roland and GraphTech. They're excellent cutters. I think you could pick either one and you're not going to go wrong with either of them. But there's preferences that go with that, right? When people choose between two different cars, that are very similar, there's features or things that you prefer one over the other. I like the GraphTech. I like the simplicity. I like just basically how everything works with that cutter in relation to the Roland. But there's so many really cool benefits and features with the Roland that it's hard for me to say that the GraphTech is better. It's all coming down to preferences. If I pick my personal one, I'm going to go with the GraphTech simply because I'm very familiar with it. I like the features and all of the different tools that comes with it. And I just feel like I get really good consistency out of that cutter, but Roland is every bit as good. I think it's very, very difficult to choose and say one's better than the other.
Terry, do yourself a favor and go onto our website, go to the GravTech landing page and request a live demo. It's a 30-minute demo. You will likely get Danny and you will be sold. Really, truly, like he's just such a guru. And so he wants you to succeed, right? And understand the business. I equate the GravTech and the Roland to an iPhone and an Android. They're both fantastic. They both will get the job done. They're both equal in price, comparable in price. And again, it's so funny hearing Danny say that because I learned on a Roland. And so for me, a Roland is like the iPhone. It's just easy. You pull it out of the box, turn it on. It's super easy. GravTech to me has a slightly larger learning curve, but the new GravTechs blow the Rolands out of the water with all the features and the bells and the whistles and all the things that Danny's going to go over with you if you do take a live demo with him, are just So really, like Danny said, you cannot go wrong with either one of those cutters. Very similar warranties, all the things. And then obviously you get the phenomenal support from STAHLS.
And I will say, Skip and I actually had this question when we were doing a video together. Skip, was it last week or this week? Don't know, it's running together, but you guys will be able to get his opinion on the cutters as well. And you can see, he said, you can get a quality cutter that isn't considered a craft cutter for not much more money than a Cricut or something similar. And I know that he's had his for years. So it's just great to see that going to that industrial cutter, there is confidence behind that from multiple different people, multiple different business types as well.
And the really big thing, if you're going to, you know, whether you go with a Roland, a Gravtech or something else, just make sure when you're doing your research, you're going from a step motor, which is a Cricut or a Silhouette, something that you can get at Joann's or Michael's, into what we call a servo motor. So a step motor, kind of the blades like go up real slow. A servo motor is real smooth. So just making sure that those are kind of your differentiators between what I would consider a craft versus a production.
What is the best way to store transfers, and how long would you recommend them sitting on a shelf? And I say transfers very loose because there are so many different types available now.
I love this question. We get asked it all the time, so I'm gonna jump in. So we stand behind a year, whether it's vinyl, our CAD prints product, our screen printed ink transfers, our DTF. I'm telling you guys off the record, even though this is being recorded, as long as you guys are storing them in airtight Ziploc poly bags, right? You can pick them up, Uline, cheap. Store your extra transfers in there, get the air out, seal them up, climate controlled room, right? Not too hot, not some hot garage or freezing cold, sub-zero weather. Years. Those puppies will last you years. And I always tell my customers, if you've got a stack of 20 transfers left over and you're storing them and you're ready to use them again, take the transfer from the top, one from the middle, and one from the bottom, and test them. If they peel nice and clean and everything's, you're golden. Vinyl, same thing. If you're storing it in a climate controlled environment, vinyl really truly can last years. Scary to say, but I have, some vinyl that I've pulled off and I'm like, oh, this is 5 years old. Let's try it. Works like a charm. I mean, really, it's great. But yeah, STAHLS stands behind our products for a year.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that happen with, degradation over time with adhesives and things in these materials. And it's the safe play, of course, is a year or less, because then you're just ensuring that transfer is going to do what it's supposed to do within that amount of time. But like Jen said, many of these transfers can go much longer. And by storing, transfers in something airtight, people in climates where there's a lot of moisture, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm trying to keep the moisture out, but I'm over in the West and people are like, well, it's dry over here, I don't have to worry about it. And I say that's quite the contrary, because we need to keep the moisture in, because you're drawing that moisture out so fast. Yeah, we don't want it to dry out. So absolutely, storing airtight is certainly going to help, and climate controlled and everything Jen mentioned. But keeping that window and cycling your transfers, and just putting yourself in a position where you're going to have consistency is certainly a good idea.
Love it. So this one has to do with some traveling. Been wanting to ask this question for a while now. To those of you who take your setup on the road to festivals, shows, sports events, etc. A, what is the pitch you make to the organization? B, how do you know what to bring, if not just the logo of the event organization you are working with? And C, is it worth doing these on the road events in the long run?
Oh, Danny, I'm going to punt that to you. You are the road master.
I could spend 3 hours on this subject alone. And I promise I won't. I'll condense it, I promise. So when you approach the people coordinating the event, they're looking, if they want you there, they're looking for the value that you can provide, right? Like, what are you gonna what are you gonna provide the people that are gonna be here? And they want things that draw people there, that they're gonna have something exciting to see, or maybe there's a service that you add, right? And if you approach these coordinators and say, I would not go to them and say, hey, what does it cost to set up at your event? I would approach them with, hey, what would it take to set up at your event? This is what I offer. Show them the value of what you have there. And oftentimes they just want you there to help with the draw of the people. If you start with the question, what do you charge? Then they're automatically thinking, well, I could charge them this amount. When in reality, they would just want you there. Maybe they say, hey, if you come set up and provide this value and buy the staff of 5 some lunch, we'd love to have you. Something like that, right? But I'll give you an example of value. I used to do softball tournaments, so I'd show up with like 700 bats in my tent and everything. And I put up a sign that said that I do glove repairs and glove relacing, right? That added another element of service, or something that the people would be very excited about, right? And so how do we relate that to decorated apparel? Well, that could be an added feature, or something that you have at your booth that is an addition to what you have in apparel, right? So if you're setting up at the sporting goods event, you want to sell apparel there, and you know somebody that relaces gloves or has another service that could be a provider at that event, now you've added another level of value, and that coordinator is going to go, wow, I'd love to have you. That sounds really cool. Having apparel and a glove repair person, that would be awesome. But past the working with the coordinator, now we have to determine how, like if I'm going to go set up somewhere, like what are the things to consider? You certainly want to bring the apparel and the decoration. I think that's the easy part. The part that gets complicated is I'm going to an event that could be a couple 100 miles away. I don't know what the weather's going to be that day. I don't know if they have proper power. Do I have long enough power cords? Do I have all the tools I need? Do I have all the things do I have enough storage to get everything there that I need? These are all considerations that come in time and understanding the event that you're going to. But if you prepare ahead of time, you're certainly going to put yourself in a better position. And I think that these are extremely lucrative things to do. You want to get out there and set up at these events and make money, but you also want to make sure that you plan ahead on what that potential profit could be, right? So if you can look at this opportunity as, okay, it's going to cost me this much to get there. This is my cost of goods. This is what it's going to take to set up. And this is what my time is. And you feel like you can go to that event, cover those costs and make a decent margin, then do it. But if you're on the fence, or if you think that margin's too thin, or you're very hesitant on the weather or some of these other things that I've talked about, then don't do it. Pick another spot, pick another event, and make that one work. Because the last thing you want is to drive 300 miles somewhere and you don't make any money, or you run into a weather problem or something like that. So you need to be prepared. Absolutely.
So Danny, I think we might have another podcast topic.
Yeah, I love
That's
it.
what's coming to my mind is like, if you're like, I could talk for 3 hours. Okay. We've got another topic.
I certainly
coming.
could. I mean, there's so many elements to this and to shorten it, condense it is kind of difficult to do. But I've seen so many people make so much money doing this. If you get it down and you get a process going, you make a ton of money doing this. And like things that stand out to me that are really kind of all over the country is like rodeos, as an example. You would think,
yeah.
Okay, I've got to go set up at the softball tournament, or I got to go set up at the local, 4th of July concert or whatever. But if you look at rodeos or some of these things that are a bit outside the box, which I like to use, you can make so much money doing these things. It's so fun to do.
Yep. Absolutely.
I agree. I think events are the way of the future, right? Like people want the experiences. And I think I actually think COVID had a lot to do with people wanting to have that kind of next level in-person experience. That's my opinion on it, but I've seen more and more and more event pop-ups in a variety of different market spaces that I may not thought I, would have ever seen somebody pop up at. Okay, here's another good question based on consumer versus resale. How do you set pricing for a company that wants to purchase decorated shirts for resale? Do you keep margins the same and allow quantities to be the discounted price for their own distribution? Or what formula do you use at the different formula for each type of customer? Now, I say formula as this is something they had asked in the Heat Press for Profit group. And like I said, other peers were coming in and answering. So when it does come to kind of understanding what to charge for the two different types of customers, what do you guys think on that?
Danny, I'm going to let you speak on that first, and then I'm going to follow up.
So if you're selling to somebody that is reselling their product, they need enough margin to resell it, right? So what ends up happening for you as the supplier is you have inherent lower margins. So you're taking in less so that they can put some profit on top of that, right? That's kind of how this works. And so if you can get higher quantities, that's preferred. The higher the quantity with a little bit less margin makes sense. But depending on what this reseller wants, that may be tough to do, but that's the goal. And then I do want to let Jen get in some thoughts here. My only caution with this is that when you fill up a pipeline full of resellers, is that if their business doesn't do well, or if we hit tougher times or something like that, and you have your pipeline full of lower margin clients, then you can find yourself in a very difficult situation, and the rest of your pipeline is not there to support you, right? So you want to diversify that, get some of these clients. It's okay to make less margin if you have the quantities and everything that are there. Take those opportunities, but make sure your pipeline is certainly spread out a little bit. You want to insulate yourself and make sure that you're in a good spot with things that you can't control.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a different take on margins and selling direct to end user or consumer versus a reseller, right? Exactly what Danny said. I think to diversify your business, you really need a mix of both. You're going to have some jobs and some clients and some programs that you're going to take a hit on, right? You're going to take a little less margin on. And then you're going to have some where you're making nice, healthy margins. And I think that's what's going to keep your business sustained. Where I really think people miss the mark is diversifying. You might be really, really good at something, but every Tom, Dick, and Harry can sell a t-shirt, right? It's kind of a race to the bottom to sell a t-shirt. How can you differentiate yourself in your community? Maybe you've got like a really quaint little downtown area. Like, what is different, right? And I'm a firm believer in upsell, 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 because as human beings, right, we tend to shop on emotion. If I'm shopping for a car and there's 3 different models, I might have a budget in mind, but man, if that salesperson can really sell me on maybe that middle car that has a few more bells and whistles, and I'm there, and it's like this impulse. So really bringing more value than just a t-shirt. Add a hoodie, add a bag, add a scarf, add a beanie, based on the season or the event or whatever it is, because those types of things are a higher price point to start with. You add then a really cool, like chroma twill, like Kelly's wearing, there go your margin, right? Your cost really isn't to make that twill, but to put it on a really high-end jacket or quarter zip or backpack, man, and you can just sell that as a nice, beautiful package to the client. That's really where you're going to end. I don't think it answered this person's question directly. And look, everybody's communities are different. Your regions are different. You might have a ton of competitors around you where you can't really quite, command the margin that you want. So all of that plays into it. But just diversifying and adding more, I think, is really going to be beneficial to the business.
Yeah, I agree definitely with both takes on that, because at the same time, if you're selling yourself short, then you're not leaving enough room or cushion for things to happen in your business or to grow, or you're basically doing all the work and labor and they're turning around and being able to take, maybe they have a higher profit on it. I think the other thing with the selling with an experience or emotions, if you are selling at an event or you're in a brewery and you had a great time, or you see something that you really like because you're on vacation, people are going to pay more. So the minute you start selling yourself short on, okay, well, I really need to charge this so they can charge that. Well, if it's a good quality product, if it is something that is a little unique, they're going to love it. That right there warrants a little bit higher of a cost. So
Yeah.
if there's anything I've ever learned in retail, it's by take a look at an item and what could you sell it for. Don't necessarily look at it from the idea of I need to get, a 75% margin on this. This is what I have to sell it for. Well, are people going to buy it at that or not? Because that's when you decide whether or not that product becomes valuable to you and your business. And that is also something and a conversation you should have with those that are turning around and reselling. What is your plan? What do you expect? Because if you're coming in and you're like, listen, this Gildan, no disrespect to Gildan, but this Gildan shirt with a one color print, I'm sorry, but let me recommend a different product, just a little bit more, to where the quality and the value is much higher. And then it's a win-win for everybody, including the customer that's buying it at the end.
And just to answer, I believe it's Brandon's question.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can post this in the chat, but we have these amazing resources over at STAHLS.com and TransferExpress.com. But at STAHLS, we have a vinyl cost calculator. It's a really helpful tool to help answer questions like, well, okay, if I have this blank and I have a transfer, how much should I mark it up? It really helps. We also have that for our patches and emblems as well. So really, really good resources, you guys. Check them out on our website. Really helpful guides.
Love it. So last in terms of business is I am working on my standard operating procedures, new client acquisition. What questions did you ask your clients up front that changed from a perspective to an actual client? Also, any advice you're willing to share would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, I can go first. I think really being direct and asking the client what their end goal is, right? What is your end goal? Is it to make the most amount of profit? Is it to have higher perceived value, brand recognition, differentiation, consumer engagement? What is their end goal? And then really try to tailor your offering to that end goal. Because if you aren't on the same page with your client, you're showing them a $50 Carhartt jacket and their budget is $15. You guys are not even speaking the same language, right? And then that doesn't build good rapport, trust, right? The client's like, they're not listening to me. They're not telling me what I want. And also setting expectations. I see this all the time. This happens all the time to us. You will get those clients, right, that want to run you ragged. They want you to do umpteen proof revisions. And I don't like this. Show me 5 more styles. And they're just mired into indecision, right? Really standing your ground and either charging for those additional services, because as a small business owner, your time is the most valuable thing in your business, right? Or setting expectation and being very clear about the expectation. And then one more thing I'll add is we all get asked this. You're too expensive. Do you offer a discount? Well, I can find it cheaper over at Bob's T-shirt shack over down the street. I am telling you, you will not be in business in 1 to 2 years if you operate constantly on discounts. Don't discredit and devaluate your services. Great. Go down to Bob's. I wish you all the best. We're probably not the best fit, right? Don't ever get scared and bullied into discounting, because I guarantee you Bob's Shirt Shack isn't going to be around in 2 years because he doesn't know how to mark up his products properly. So really making sure that you stand your ground on price, because as a small business owner, right, that's really, really crucial. Discounts are just a race to the business closing. So yeah, that's kind of my answer on that one. Sorry, I digressed there. I went on a tangent a little bit.
No, that was a great answer, and I don't want to repeat a lot of it, so I'll kind of touch on some things in addition to that. Is sell what you offer. How do you handle your business, and explain that to your customer, and ask them, you know, what are they looking for out of their supplier? You know, like just work with you. What do you expect? And then what do you get into the challenges of what they've had with their other decorators. This guy, he never met my lead times, or this guy would always change the price on me, or the quality wasn't there, right? If you understand the challenges that, what they had before, or the challenges they had before, you're able to use that to your advantage, because you can say, hey, I am consistent. I am good on price. I can help you with all these things. And I don't want you to experience the things you experienced before. I can take care of that, right? So you touch on all those sore subjects that they had in the past. If they had them, you need to understand what they are. And then people work with you because it's you and what you provide, and what you or people that work with you provide in your business. And I think there's more value in that than what people understand. Even if they pay a little bit more, it's because of the little things that you do. Like maybe in order to get them their product in time, you drove it out and delivered it to them. Or every time you put your product together and you put a little note in there that's a thank you card that makes them feel good about what they bought. Like all these little things that cost you next to nothing. That's what makes people want to buy from you. And I really, people get discouraged. They think, well, I have all this competition and I can't compete. You can, because you're the unique one. You're the one that is different than the others. And the value that you give is how you're going to win that business.
Absolutely.
Good answers. So because we are already at time, I'm going to wait to ask questions on product, because I feel like that is a whole other session that we could definitely do from other questions that have been asked in the Heat Press for Profit group. But for wrap-up purposes, I want to ask 2 questions to you guys. Which press is your favorite and why? And then the second is, what product do you feel any and every business can benefit from offering their customers?
Want me to go, Danny?
Yeah, go ahead. I got to think about that second question. That's a good one.
All right. Hands down, the 360 IQ cap press. And I'm going away from the norm, right? Everybody likely is going to say a t-shirt press, because that's the first thing you need if you're starting out a business, is a t-shirt press. But I'm telling you what, you guys, for under $2,000, this little press can not only do patches on hats, it can do scarves, fanny packs, bags, left chest, sleeve, back yoke, like anything you can fit on that 2.5-inch footprint, you can decorate on this little 360. I have one sitting right next to me. I love this little press. It's portable, it's lightweight, you can take it to events. I mean, it just checks so many boxes. You can make your money back on this thing in one job, so that's my press that I'm going to stand by. And then product. That's a tough one. I'm going to say 2. Direct to film. It's just the wave of the future. It accommodates and checks so many boxes, and is evolving every day into what it can accommodate and what it can work on. And all if you offer nothing else to your clients, DTF, whether you produce it yourself, you outsource it to a company like us, it's the way to go. And then patches and emblems. Yep. Everybody wants a patch on a hat. And man, you can command so much margin. selling a patch on a hat or a patch on a bag or a patch on a jacket or, yeah. So those are my two.
Danny.
So you stole a lot of my thunder there. Thanks,
I'm
Jen.
sorry.
No, I did think about this question a little bit, and I'll start with the press. So absolutely, the hat press. I love that press, but my all-time favorite press out of the entire line is the 16x16 autoclam. It's lightweight. It's you can use it in any shop setting. It's super easy to use. It has everything you'd want out of a press. And that particular size, I just love the 16x16. So if I had to pick one that could do everything, I really like that one. As far as a product, I'll answer it like this. I think that there's so many different product offerings out there. I would look at how can you add more value to that product? Is there a certain process or a finishing touch or something that you add to that product? So for example, we've talked about, like how you can make your own patches, right? There's certain touches and techniques you could offer with that, okay, I'm doing DTF and a special effect transfer, but I made it that much more unique because I added a texture to it, or I added another element of color to it, right? It could even be with something like vinyl or DTF, is maybe you have a process that just makes polyester look amazing. You don't have as many scorches or heat boxes or issues with it. And so the product is part of it, but if you can make that product and put it in locations or come up with processes that work for you and that you have reliability behind, it makes that product that much better. So like I said, Jen stole my thunder, so I had to come up with something there that added to that, because I do think that some of that value certainly plays a part in this.
And shout out to Skip. He's posting in the comments, so I want to kind of bring it to light. He is the master. If you guys are not part of our Heat Press for Profit Facebook group, run and join. He is the master at layering and combining different materials to make a patch, right? But a homegrown, what I call a DIY patch. So maybe you or the client doesn't have the budget, right? Or you can't meet the 25 piece minimum, but yet you can get really creative with your cutter. He is the master at it. He'll layer flock and foam and puff and and DTF and all these really cool effects to give it a patch look. You could do one. Now you can offer your client 1 or 6 or 12, right? You got to be a little careful as you start to get into mass volume. Skip does it really, really well. I don't know as though everybody could do it that well, but just stepping outside of the box, really, that's what differentiates you, right? So.
Yeah, he mentioned combining materials. That's one of the little things, right? Combining materials, that it's nothing more than taking two things and making them have unique value to it. That's
a whole new product.
Yeah, it's a whole new product, and it's really the same thing that was already there. You're just adding your touches to it. There's a ton of value in that.
Yep.
For those of you that are watching this live, or maybe you're catching the replay on Facebook or YouTube, right there is the link to the Heat Press for Profit group that I've mentioned a couple times, and Jen just mentioned it as well. So on Facebook, go to group, search Heat Press for Profit. It is a sponsored by STAHLS group. But the cool thing is it's a giant community, like I always talk about, of people in the industry, different markets, different skill levels, and everybody just contributes to helping each other grow. At the end of the day, it is not meant to be one of those promotional type of groups. It is you ask, we help, we share. There is a show and tell Friday kind of, to where it's like, show us what you're working on. But it's just a great group to really kind of dive into what's working for people. And then, of course, trials and errors. People share all of that information on there. So to wrap up, Jen, Danny, thank you so very much for allowing me to just kind of quiz you on some questions. And if you guys have tuned in with us live, thank you so much. Whether you're tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Instagram, we really, really appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Now, if you are streaming this podcast wherever podcasts are streamed, make sure you subscribe. That way you can be notified whenever new issues have been released. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.